You may recall that in our last session I was trying to describe Jewish history in a very simple manner. No names, no dates, ubechol zot. And you may recall that I made an imaginary triangle, and I said we have the base and we go down till the point and then we begin again. I also told you that the base meant that we were progressing further and further and further in Jewish history, and then all of a sudden we came to problems and more problems and more problems until we came to the greatest problem of all, which we may call a churban, a shoah, or any nasty thing that you want to mention. Now, we're going to continue, because I said that from that base and from the point at the bottom, we begin anew, and we have a series of these triangles. And the question was, when we begin anew, who are the people who are beginning again the base? Now here I have a problem. And the problem is that there was a scholar named Yosef Micha Berdachevsky, late 19th century, who changed his name to Ben Gurion. And this scholar actually, well, I won't tell you what he said, but I made out of his material a game. And here comes my game. I'm going to mention a name, and I want you to think in your mind who that person was, what he looked like, etc. And then we'll see what happened. Okay, you ready? Avraham Avinu. No, what comes to mind? Don't tell me a guy with a beard, because all of them are guys with beards. Avraham Avinu, Otpam, again. Looks a little bit like a Bedouin. Unfortunately, you're right. And now I skip and I say Joseph in Mitzrayim. And somebody for some reason thinks of Yul Brenner and a Yul Brenner haircut. And Aktonet Pasim. And what we call in Hebrew a Chatich. Okay, we finished with Yosef. Now I go to Yehuda Maccabi. And he's my favorite because I'm standing there with a sword. And you know what he looked like. After Yehuda Maccabi, I skip and I go all the way to the Rambam. Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon, better known as Maimonides. And all of you have seen pictures of Maimonides with his tarbush, etc. And I go further. And after the Rambam, I go all the way to a Hasidic Rebbe in the 13th, 14th century. You know what that looks like. And then I skip all the way to the 20th century, and I say a Reform rabbi. And you know that most of the Reform rabbis are well dressed and well educated. And then I go a little bit further and I say, look at me! That's what Berdachevsky, basically, that's the game that he never played, but that I played with my students at YU, at Stern College, and I had a good time getting all kinds of reactions. Anyhow, now we get to my problem. Berdichevsky said, are you going to talk about a point in a triangle and a new beginning? Each one of these guys is a different character. How can you even think in terms of continuity? And I, Berdichevsky, who changed my name to Ben Gurion, God knows why, I, Berdichevsky, say there is no continuity. Each beginning is a new beginning. How do I answer that? I don't. But you know who does? Professor Yosef Klausner, who, as far as I am concerned, was the greatest authority on the Second Commonwealth, Bayit Sheni, in Jewish history. And if he was a genius about Bayit Sheni, then also he knew very well Christianity. He wrote a volume that Jesus Christ was called a Jew, etc. And Klausner was angry when he read Berdichevsky's comments and when he thought of the different personalities that we were talking about. And Klausner reminded us of something. He reminded us that Socrates was asked a similar question. Somebody brought a baby into the room of Socrates and said, "Master, look at this baby. Now wait a minute." And hocus pocus, into the room walked an old man, all bent. And the person said to Socrates, "Socrates, that baby and that old man are the same person. How can that be?" And Socrates said, "If you take the baby and immediately, by some magic, change him into an old man, then it's not the same person. However, if you take the baby and you have time and patience, or what we say in Israel, savlanut, and you watch how the baby develops and begins to crawl, begins to walk, begins to talk too much, begins to talk nonsense, begins to mishuganize his parents, etc., 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 until his kids made him so crazy that he is now an old man, then we are talking about the same person." Says Professor Klausner, if we take a baby and we make a Röntgen, and in the Röntgen we see that the baby has, chas v'shalom, a blemish on his heart, and then we take a picture of the old man, we may see the same blemish. Therefore, they're the same person. That's part of the answer. The answer is, if we want to see the continuity in Judaism, we have to look at the heart. And now I'll tell you something which I still get very, very, very emotional about. Some time ago, I had the privilege of going to Portugal to meet with Marranos. You know what Marranos are. They're called Anusim or Marranos. Some people say that the word Marranos means Mar Anus. I went with my wife Karen. We wanted to study the Marano situation. And we went on a tour. And I began speaking to various people, and I'll make this brief, but it's still important. We ended up in a place called Trancoso. I had the honor of giving the name to a new synagogue that was built in Trancoso for the Anusim, for the Maranos. We met these people, and some of them knew absolutely nothing about Judaism. And they were all emotional with us. In fact, to give you one example, the first Friday night in Trancoso, Karen lit the candles, she benched licht, and from the women's gallery, we all heard crying. There were a group of women who for the first time in their life saw lighting candles openly, not lighting candles inside some kind of a jar that nobody should see it. This was something fantastic. And I can go through all these kind of stories about these Maranos. In fact, one chidush of mine goes as follows: Al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakahal b'yeshiva shel mala u'v'yeshiva shel mata anu matilim lehitpalel im ha'avaryanim. Who are the avaryanim? What does it mean, avaryanim? Why not chotim, sinners? I think avaryanim comes from the word Iberia. The avaryanim are those who came from Iberia. And we now pray together with them. Anyhow, this first trip was amazing. The first thing, we're walking with a guide, and the guy turns to us and says, did you know that I have Jewish blood? And I looked at him and I said, I knew. And he said to me, how did you know? And I said, because you've got a Jewish nose. And he laughed. And then he said, no, but really, I know I have Jewish blood. I said, well, how do you know? He says, well, I'll give you one example. What's the example? He says, there was a custom in Portugal for people to prepare their hot dogs in a very interesting way. And I must here take a minute in order to make a hesped for hot dogs, because lately, with all the intelligent discussions of what food is proper and what food is not proper, my wife, Shetia Bria, doesn't allow me to eat hot dogs. Anyhow, what they used to do in Portugal, they would stuff the hot dog with pork and hang it on the window to dry. Said this guy to me, my grandmother told us that she wanted everyone to believe that we follow the custom of hanging hot dogs on the window, but she fooled them because she stuffed the hot dog not with chazer, but with kosher meat. Now that's some story, and I have many of that kind of a story. And now maybe I'll come to at this point, to the last story, and I want to reiterate true facts. concerning the Anusim and what it has to do with everything we talked about till now. We were in Porto, and we met there someone who owned an antique shop. He specialized in his antique shop selling what he called menorahs, menorot, Chanukiot, and he didn't really know why, but he knew it's something Jewish. And he got into a conversation with me and he said, you know, I sell these things because I feel that I'm Jewish. I don't know why, but I feel that I'm Jewish. We got into a conversation. Then he came to visit us in our hotel, and he told me the following story. He said, I went to some kind of a convention where there were a group of people who were interested in showing Marranos their heritage. And I went into a Beit Knesset where I hadn't been in a Beit Knesset. I think I may have been at a Beit Knesset in Lisbon for my bar mitzvah, but I'm not sure. And I went into this place, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised. And I said, I have to learn more about Judaism. And then I met you. And therefore, I have a request. And please don't laugh at me. You know that, as I said, since my bar mitzvah, nothing. Number two, my wife is a Catholic. And my wife is a professor. And we have decided that we would like to come to Israel, now that we know you, and I know that you are a rabbi, and you know rabbis can do anything. You are a rabbi, and what we want is to go to the Kotel, to the Wailing Wall, and we want you there to marry us as Jews. So I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I could just see myself with Rabbanut Yisrael going to the Kotel HaMa'aravi and marrying this Catholic woman with this guy who doesn't know who he is or what he is. So I said, listen, maybe, but I have to ask you a few questions first. I said, pardon me, but tell me, are you circumcised? And he said, no. So I said, oh my God. Can you please explain to me why somebody who knows nothing about Judaism, somebody who wasn't circumcised, somebody who's married to a Catholic girl wants to be married by Rabbi Weinberg at the Kotel? Never mind the dangers involved that the Rabbanut will kill me. But why? He stops in his tracks, and I'm telling you the truth. He stops in his tracks and he goes like this. I don't know. I don't know, but I feel that's what I want to be. That picture has followed me since then till this moment now. And you asked me, what is it? Why can I look at all these pictures that Berdichevsky played with and say there still is something which will develop again and will be another base? And even if we have problems, and even if we come down to an almost nothing, we'll start again? My dear friends, the reason is... Thank you.